Welcome back to another episode of the Many Faces of Cancer podcast. I am your host, Melissa Grosboll, and joining me today is Amanda Gunville. And Amanda is a visionary executive, investor, and author with more than 15 years of experience leading growth across consumer brands, investor-backed ventures, and large-scale developments. Known for her ability to turn vision into measurable value, Amanda has built, scaled, and advised companies spanning industries from CPG and real estate to technology and philanthropy. As the founder and CEO of Hope and Joy LLC and the Hope and Joy Fund, an IRS-designated 501c3, Amanda leads a national movement bringing hope and humor to patients through her best-selling book, Finding Hope and Joy in Cancer. The book debuted as the #1 top new release across 3 Amazon categories and has inspired a nationwide book drive initiative connecting companies with cancer centers to make a tangible impact in their local communities. Amanda brings a rare combination of strategic acumen, creative vision, and heart-led leadership that inspires teams and drives meaningful, measurable growth. Her work continues to bridge the worlds of business, impact, and storytelling, helping brands, teams, and communities thrive with purpose. So welcome to the show, Amanda.
Thank you for having me, Melissa. I appreciate it.
I am so excited to have you on. You're one of the few. We actually live in the same town, so
we do.
We did our pre-interview over coffee instead of over Zoom, so that was a lot of fun.
You had a matcha. I had a steamer. Neither one of us drink coffee, but we were at a coffee shop.
Well, I had matcha because I don't drink coffee either. So.
Yep.
But I call it coffee because it still comes in the same kind of cup, and I can pretend that I'm a coffee drinker like the rest of them.
Yeah, we're fancy.
We're fancy. My daughter calls it bougie coffee.
Ah, yes.
You know, you have the stuff that you just pour out of the coffee maker, and then anything that comes in the little cup is bougie coffee.
I love it. Very good.
All right, so Amanda, you know, your bio is a lot of work stuff and accomplishments and business, and I love that. But before we really get started, tell me kind of one personal thing about you that wasn't in your bio.
Ooh, that's a great question. You're going to stump me from the beginning. So, one personal thing. Well, I love to golf. Golf is my passion. I grew up golfing in a golfing family. So if you don't golf, you kind of don't hang out with my family.
Wow. Okay. What's your handicap?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I think I'm a 13 now. It's not very good. This whole 2.5 years of cancer thing and a double mastectomy just kind of put a crunch in my game. So I'm definitely not as good as I used to be, but I don't care. It's a walk in the park and I love it.
Oh, so you walk, you don't do the golf carts?
Oh, I'm not saying that. I definitely. But you have to walk from the golf cart to your shot. And then once you get close to the green, you have to walk from the cart to the green. So, I mean, that counts. I get my steps in.
Okay. All right. I am not a golfer, so I do not know. I told my husband once I wanted him to teach me how to golf, and he said that he would hire somebody because he wanted to stay married to me.
That's fair. That's very fair.
And I don't understand. And then I went to Top Golf, and I lost miserably at Top Golf and decided that golf really is not for me.
That's all right. At least you tried.
I did try. Yes. All right. So Amanda, take us back. We generally always start with the cancer story. So kind of take us back to that time when you were initially diagnosed and, what was going on in your life and just kind of give us the highlights of that story.
Sure. So it was October 2022, and I was very busy. We'll just call it that. I was, a busy executive for a company as the COO and CMO. I was a mom of an 18-month-old, and I still had my consulting career that I was doing on nights and weekends. So I was just burning the candle at every end, and I get joy and fulfillment from working, so I enjoyed those things. But what I didn't realize is that myself and my self-care and anything that had to do with me was about, I don't know, maybe number 5 or 6 on the list of priorities. So,
Was it even
definitely.
that high?
And probably not. Probably like 10th. Let's be honest. That floor needed to be vacuumed so badly before I got a healthy meal. So,
Gotcha.
So I probably was number 10. And I just went in for my routine annual exam. I really just went because I wanted to get a refill on my birth control, and they don't do it unless you go to your annual exam. And they mentioned, "Oh, you're 41. You're a year late for your mammogram." And I said, "Oh gosh, what was I thinking?" Absolutely. And I'm a proponent of being an advocate of your own health, being proactive with exams. And so I immediately called, got my appointment, didn't think anything of it. We laughed, as the boobs were getting squished. It wasn't a nervous thing. It was just check it off the list. And it was 2 days later that I received a phone call that simply just said, "We need you to come back in for more scans. We see some dark spots, might just be a fuzzy image, could be nothing. Come back in." And I did what we are told absolutely not to do. And I went into my portal, grabbed the report, copied and pasted it into Dr. Google.
Oh
And
boy.
oh, yes. And so that's when there were a lot of terms that obviously were unrecognizable to me, not as a non-medical professional. But there was one in particular where I found a medical journal article that said in a, thousands upon thousands person study, if this exists, it is a very high likelihood of malignancy, in fact, almost guaranteed. So of course, then the panic sets in. And that's when I really got active in, okay, I don't need to redo my imaging. I need a biopsy. That's what I need. And so it was, I will spare you the details, but it was an absolute lesson in self-advocacy and persistence like you have never believed, could never believe. It was like, "Nope, we can't get you in here. No, I don't know. Where should you go?" And finally was able, through a family connection, I actually had to fly to my hometown to get in so I could get my biopsy within that week.
Wow.
It was a Thursday, and they said, "Fly home, we'll get you in Monday morning." So, yeah. Um, and that
So
was
lesson number one, be your best advocate and don't
ab-
take no for an answer.
absolutely. I mean, that's really what it was. And to be fair, Melissa, I heard no for 2.5 years. I mean, that was my experience, was just fighting upon fighting, and I'll get to that. But I went to my biopsy, and I had a radiologist, and I just point blank asked her. I mean, I walked in and I was already crying because you just kind of know in your gut when something isn't right. And
Mhm.
I said, "What do you think?" And normally they are like, "Well, we'll see what the results show." But she was very kind, and she looked at me straightforward and said, "I think it's cancer." And so, what I tell you what, and I don't know if you've experienced this, but I believe that the not knowing is by far the worst part of the entire process, is like the
The
unknown.
waiting, right?
Right? The waiting. It's
Yeah.
horrible. So, once I heard that, even though it wasn't definitive, it was like, okay, unless there's a miracle in my future, which I wasn't ruling out yet, but unless there's a miracle in my future, I need to come to grips with this. It's fight time. So, yeah.
Yeah, and mine was every appointment that I went to, it's like, it's probably nothing. These things happen all the time and it's probably not a big deal. And I was believing everybody because, I have no history of cancer in my family. Like there's no way that I have cancer. And I remember that the woman who did my ultrasound, that was the one piece because she said the margins are a little irregular, but I'm sure that it'll be fine. And that was the one piece that stuck in me the whole time, even though, my OBGYN told me it's probably nothing. The The person who did my mammograms told me it's probably nothing. Even the person doing my biopsy told me, oh, it's probably nothing. And it was just that one little piece that stuck in my head. But I was still 90% was like, oh, yeah, it's probably nothing. So it was like, when I got that call, it just dropped me to my knees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yours was kind of the opposite. You kind of had this intuition that you had it the whole time. And meanwhile, I'm telling myself, no, 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 I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we all have different stories. At the end of the day, when you hear the final word, we all drop to our knees, right?
True.
So,
Yep.
I was in the middle of a business meeting. I knew the call was probably coming that day, and I was in LA on business meetings, and I stepped away from the meeting. I was in the middle of SoFi Stadium doing this big tour to potentially be a sponsor there, and with the executive team of this,
Oh my gosh.
yeah. So it was kind of like I'm sorry, excuse me. And so I got the phone call, and the doctor said it's what we thought, it's cancer. And so that was the moment where, in the movies when the bomb goes off and then the main character just hears me, the basically you can't hear anything. That was the rest
Yeah.
of my meeting. Like, this lovely woman was giving this beautiful tour, but I was kind of like Charlie Brown, wah 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 wah. and I was trying really hard to be engaged, and she was just amazing. But I just, my world had just shifted. So I needed to figure out how I was going to maybe hopefully survive. And I didn't know how bad it was yet. So, yeah, it was a drop you to the knees, but also I had to fake it till I made it at that moment because I was in the middle of a meeting that I had to show face for. So, yeah.
All right. So you've been alluding to, hearing no for 2.5 years, and you didn't know how bad it was gonna be. So we need to kind of dive into all of that and your experience with all of that. I want to hear about hearing no for 2.5 years. What was that all about?
Yeah, I mean, it was literally everything. So from even just like, for example, when I got the biopsy report back and it was for sure cancer, I knew obviously I needed treatment. I didn't know what the treatment was. I didn't know if it was surgery. I didn't know if it was a pill. I knew nothing about treatment, for obviously for my particular cancer. So I called my OBGYN where I started, and they're like, I don't know, maybe call a breast surgeon. And I was like, what, seriously? Like, that was zero helpful. And so I just started researching, and I think I mean, I know not everybody has that experience. They have care teams that follow up and are lovely, but I just didn't. And so I felt like I was fighting then to try to get somebody to call me back. And I didn't know, do I want to get treatment where I was in Colorado? Do I want to go to where my parents were? I had a baby and my husband travels for work. So I was looking at all of these different cities and states across the country and trying to decide what's the best option for me. And each time I called, because I wasn't a doctor referring me, it was, oh, we don't have your scans, we don't have your reports. So I'm just like going to take no for an answer. I was like, what do you need? I mean, it was to the point where I finally was able to get into, two great institutions to go get consults. But I had to have my scans in the hands of the doctors with 20, or I think it was 48 hours before the appointment, or they would cancel it. So I called FedEx, who had, because you can't do anything easy. You had to put it on a CD. You had to go down, get it on a CD, and put it
Oh my God.
overnight. But then the scan was showing me that it wasn't there. So I'm calling FedEx. I'm like, I need to talk to the driver. And somehow, miraculously, I talk to the FedEx driver, and they're like, he's lost. He doesn't know which building to go to because it's a huge hospital. And so I'm like, okay, you walk straight, you go up the stairs. I mean, it was like this. You can't make this stuff up, And that was just to get a consult, but it was like that. Even once I had my care team established, it was, okay, this is going awry. Well, that's just protocol. No, it's not just protocol. I feel terrible, or I need this. And it was just, constantly being told, you can't have this, or I want to see a physical therapist. Well, insurance turns you down. I mean, literally, my insurance company didn't even approve my chemo till the night before, and I was traveling in for it. So it
Oh my
was,
gosh.
oh yeah, it was a fight.
Good thing you're a fighter.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right, lesson number two, don't take no for an answer.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But you know what? The thing that's heartbreaking for me is that, I was young. I was 41 years old, and I come from a family. Every one of them's in the medical field except for me, and they're, kind of in leadership positions within the medical field. So I had, people to sort of help guide me through the system. Plus, I'm young with it, think fairly competent. And what it makes me realize, and it truly breaks my heart, is to think the majority of people who get diagnosed, right, are older, they don't have the resources, and they do just take no for an answer. And so it delays everything because they just think that's just the way that it is. And so it's something I'm passionate about, of like, how can we solve this problem? And there are some great nonprofits that'll help give you a nurse advocate to guide you through the process that I found out after the fact. but but yeah, it's something that we need even more of.
Right. And I mean, I was very fortunate. I had a nurse navigator where, I went to Sally Jobe, which is the big imaging center
Me
here.
too.
And, they assigned me a nurse navigator and helped me to, find appointments. And everybody that I asked, like I probably asked 5 people for recommendations for a breast surgeon, and they all gave me the same doctor.
Amazing.
And which was great, which I ended up using her. But I'm like, I want to get a second opinion, and nobody else can give me the name of somebody else. So I asked the nurse navigator, I was like, please help me find somebody else to go to just to get a second opinion. And then I found out, most hospitals, most systems don't have nurse navigators. So, and the nurse navigator at the hospital system that I went to, I think I talked to her once, and that was it. And then, I went to Parker Hospital here for their support group. And I mean, they have this nurse navigating team that is unbelievable. And I thought that I just didn't, well, gee, I didn't get that kind of care. But I mean, at least I had a nurse navigator. And then I found out that most systems don't even have that. And like you're on your own. And we're so inundated and overwhelmed with the whole idea of a diagnosis and, oh my gosh, we have cancer and we need to get treatment. And then to have all of this on top of that, it's like, seriously, like
Yeah.
how badly do you want to beat us down?
Seriously. Let's just add some more stress onto that
Yeah.
cancer cell.
Because, stress has nothing to do
Not
with cancer,
zero.
right?
No, no. Or any disease for that matter.
Or any disease for that matter. Absolutely. And yes, we are being very facetious that
Yes, we
probably
are.
95% of all diseases have stress as either a major or minor component of that.
Yes, it might be 100%. That might be the one statistic in life where stress is a contributor on some level, 100%.
I was trying to come up with, some outlier or some
You're right.
crazy disease out there that
You're
has
right.
nothing to do with stress,
The
but
sci-
probably not.
The scientific researchers out there would be like, it's never 100%.
Right. That's called CYA. All right. So obviously you eventually made it through treatment and you are doing very well today. Yes.
Yes, I am.
So you being a young cancer patient, talk a little bit about what it was like. You had an 18-month-old when you were diagnosed. How was that? I mean, did you talk to her at all about it? Did she know anything about what you were going through, or did you just kind of, she's too young and she won't remember anyway, so let's not burden her with any more?
Yeah. Well, I will say when I, got the final word and knew that's what I had, I personally went into this deep, dark despair because earlier that year, my best friend from college had passed away from breast cancer, which she had gone through treatment 10 years prior, and it recurred twice and ultimately took her life. So in my mind,
Wow.
breast cancer meant early death. That was my, that's what my truth was. And so I would look at my daughter. I actually couldn't really look at her because I would just say, how selfish was I to bring a child into this world at this geriatric, as they called me, stage, and leave her motherless. And that was the record that played in my head over and over and over again. And so it was like, okay, I got to get my affairs in order and make sure that she's cared for. And then at the same time, I was like, wait a minute, we need to fight. I need to be hopeful. I need to be positive. And I received a really great piece of advice from my brother about 2 weeks in because I couldn't stop crying. I would be during the day, 9 to 5, on calls for my job, which I hadn't really told anybody what was going on in my personal life yet. So I had to be, business face on, and then I would just crumble after the day would end and I would see her. And he said to me, we were on a walk, and I was like, I know I need to have a positive mindset because that's going to help me get through this. And he said, sister, that's great. He said, yes, absolutely. Mindset is important. But can we take a moment and just say, this is shitty? And we don't like curse at each other very often. He's like, you've been handed a really crap hand. And give yourself grace to process that, move through the emotions. And I will say a caveat. My brother is the medical director of the PICU at probably one of the largest hospitals in the country. So he deals with these difficult conversations with parents and people all the time. So I just got really lucky that he happens to be my brother. But it was what I needed to hear. I needed to hear that, you know what, you don't need to be perfect today. You can be perfect. Let's move through the steps. Let's at least give yourself the grace to be sad, be mad, be all the things. And then, yeah, let's pick up a nice bag of hope and, and now my book, Hope and Joy, and optimism, and move through this. And that was really, really important. So I just wanted to preface that with, like, what did I do with my daughter? So she was too young to know what was going on. So there was no conversation to be had. She knew that we ultimately decided that we would go and be with my parents in California, where they had a winter. I mean, oh darn, miss a winter of Colorado. I mean, oh, shoot. So if you have to go through it, at least go through it in sunny California. So that was a silver lining. But she knew that she had the people that loved her most around her. They, took her out of the house, which I, it's weird to say this, but I always say I hit the jackpot with her timing because she wasn't a baby. I was done breastfeeding, but she wasn't old enough to be like, why is mommy in bed? Why is she not getting out of bed for days at a time? She just, their brains don't have memory, right? That lasts more than maybe 5 minutes. So she just knew that she just went and fed the ducks at the pond, and we wanted to keep it that way. So having as many people around her as possible that loved her and she was familiar with was really important. And the only time where I think it really maybe sunk in was I tried to always wear a scarf or a wig when I was around her, and you just forget. And so one day I came out of the room and my bald head was shining nice and bright like Mr. Clean, and she kind of looked at me. She was like, who is that? And I always say, she looked at me like, did you lose a bet, Mom? And so, yeah, that was, but really, she doesn't have a recollection, of what
I
that two
think I
and a
need
half
to do a
years.
show. I need to get somebody on to talk about, the different stages of childhood and, experiencing and how you talk to them, because I've talked to people who have adult children and teenagers and then, adolescents and stuff. And, you have to be mindful of that and know how much they can handle and how much to tell and everything. And it's very interesting just to hear different people talk about, how they talked about it with their children. Because I mean, I know so many people who have lost parents to cancer, and at different stages in their lives, and how it affects them, and this is people passing from cancer, obviously not just living with it.
Hmm.
But it's very interesting to like what kind of conversations to have. So
Yeah.
you kind of, yeah, you hit the jackpot. You didn't have to.
I didn't. And I would say overall, I mean, kids, I have obviously talked to other women who had older kids. What I've learned is that kids are really resilient, and if handled properly, it can actually make them a more empathetic human in the world as you move through this, right? And I think that's a gift you can give your children. So if you could reframe it in your mind of what are my kids losing out on, which is, a vibrant present mom for 24/7, which is what we normally are when we're healthy, and say, I might not be a 10 for this next period of time, a 10 out of 10 in my effort as I normally am. But I'm going to be teaching my kids really important lessons about empathy, resilience, being self-sufficient. There's a lot of lessons that can be learned through that process. And I will say, even though there wasn't that conversation with my daughter, she's great with strangers. She's used to having multiple mothers in her life, so that I can leave to go out to dinner, or a little work trip now where she's like, "See you later, mom." She doesn't freak out because she's been used to it. I probably was more of a Velcro parent before. Apparently, this is the new term, Velcro parent. You just attach yourself to your
Okay.
kids. And it forced me to let other people help, because I was not doing a very good job of that. It was, well, I've read the books and I can, I want to do it flawlessly. I want to do it right. I read every parenting book in the world. And that wasn't healthy. So it was a force reset for me too as a parent.
And I'm sure it's made you a much better parent, because I'm sure none of the parenting books that you read about talked about how do you parent your kid when you're going through cancer
Weird,
treatments.
but they did not.
Yeah,
It was like,
imagine that.
we'll teach her how to,
Maybe somebody should write a book about that.
maybe.
All right. Well, that is a very good segue. So I want to talk about your book, and it is Finding Hope and Joy in Cancer, and it is fairly new release, right? You just released it not too long ago, correct?
Yeah, I released it on October 1st, which,
Okay.
was happened to be my birthday, and also the start of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So I was like, oh, it just seems like it's divine, this is what we should do. So it's been out for a little over a
Okay.
month.
All right. So tell me kind of what led, and I love to ask this question of authors, because I'm not a writer. That's why I have a podcast instead of a book,
Mhm.
because I like to talk more than I like to write. So what kind of led you to this, hey, I'm going to write a book?
Well, like I said, my treatment was 2.5 years. So I got the whole poo-poo platter with the hard chemo, the surgeries, then another year of chemo after that because there was residual disease. So I got really, really good at chemo. That sounds funny. Because I was really
I'm a master
I
at
am a
chemo.
master. But and managing not only the physical side effects, but also the mental side effects, and dealing with relationships, and the whole gamut that comes with fighting this disease. And so anytime somebody had a new friend who was diagnosed, they were always like, "Hey, do you mind?" And I was like, "Absolutely, send them my way." And I love just giving all the tips and tricks. And I also am an advocate of doing as much therapy as you possibly can. And I kept having therapist after therapist tell me, you need to be writing a blog, a book, anything. And I was like, well, I've never written anything. So clearly it's not going to be a book. And then this sounds fake, but it is exactly what happened. I didn't think this actually happens to people when they say it happens, but it did. So it was 3 a.m. and I just poof, popped up, which wasn't unusual because, we like to wake up at 2 and 3 in the morning as women, but all of the words were just there. I mean, first chapter was just, this is what needs to be written down. And I didn't say like this is a book or anything. I just said this is what needs to be written down. So I got up and I wrote it down and then I just left it there. And then a couple days later, something else would come to mind and I would just write it. And I would only ever write when I was by myself and when I could be sitting outside. So I was just very authentically in my own spirit. And I started, as I was writing it and really just getting down, it started to just be my story. I thought, this is going to be awesome for my daughter someday. That's really what I thought. It's like, oh, she's going to be able to read my journal someday. And then when it was all done and I read through it, I thought, I think this could really help people because this is like the conversation that I get to have with all of these amazing people who I, get kind of referred to me, both men and women. Certainly not, I actually half of them are men with liver cancer or multiple myeloma, but we all go through similar side effects when you're going through chemotherapy. So I gave it to a handful of folks to read who had no idea I was writing something, and I just said, hey, what do you think? And they said this could really help somebody. And in my mind I thought, if one paragraph reaches one patient, then this is a success. But then, of course, my type A, like, overachiever brain kicked on, and I was like, well, if we're going to do it, let's just go all out. So I decided I was going to publish it, put it on Amazon, and do the marketing, create a website, create a big movement, ultimately. But it really became a love letter. And what I wished I would have had, because I don't know if this happened to you, Melissa, but I, of course, when I was diagnosed, immediately go on Amazon or Google, like, top, cancer survival book. And I ordered the top 5 books and opened up each and every one of them, got through the first chapter and thought, oh my gosh, one, it was either overwhelming, 2, it was filled with scare tactics, and I was like, I already have cancer. You don't need to tell me I've been eating like crap, okay? Like, I know.
Right. Everything that you've done wrong, and that's why you're here.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Check.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I was like, I just wanted something to help me get through it. And so that's what this book is. It's it's my story, but it's laced with real tips and tricks of how to move through cancer. But, and a lot of people say, well, after I got through this hard thing, I became this wonderful version of myself. And I'm here to say I became the best version of myself in my hardest days, by far. The happiest I've ever been. I was the sickest I've ever been and the happiest I've ever been at the same time. How does that happen? Well, I was like, we got to get this in a book. And so that's the story of the book.
I love that. I interviewed someone else who wrote a book, and I think her book was positively altered, but the tagline was, finding joy in the bottom of a chemo bag or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a very similar thing. I mean, we always learn the most from the hardest times, not when things are easy, not when everything is happy and joyous. And, while I would never want anybody to go through this, the lessons and stuff that you learn by going through it just create a beautiful life on the other side.
You said it perfectly. And that's what I always say. I'm like, would I ever wish this on anyone? Absolutely not. It's the worst, okay? But if the fact is that you are going to get cancer, or you're going to have it, it's a fact. It's just the way it is. How can we make it the absolute best thing that ever happened to you? And that's my message, right?
Right. I love that. And that's kind of the whole purpose of this podcast, is really helping to bring hope to people in the midst of that overwhelm, that, hey, yes. And I say this probably almost every show, cancer sucks. There's no two ways
Nope.
about it. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Cancer sucks. And life can be amazing. I always say life can be amazing on the other side, but life can also be amazing through the
Mhm.
process, which I hadn't really thought about until you brought it up. So now I have to change my little spiel.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's about how it truly is about having the tools because it sucks. It sucks. But if you have the tools, and like I said, that's everything from, the medical side, physical side, but also the mental, spiritual relationships, everyone in your orbit that's affected by it. If you have the tools to navigate it all, it doesn't have to be the worst thing. It doesn't, I mean, it's not going to be great, right? It's still going to suck, but it'll suck a lot less. And it can also have some beautiful, beautiful results.
Absolutely. All right. Well, tell us about your book drive, because this is something that
Hmm.
I haven't really heard anybody else talk about with their book, and it's just such an amazing idea. So
Thank you.
tell us what your book drive initiative
Yeah,
is.
so I just felt when you're going through chemotherapy, you have to buy all these things, right? You're like, okay, I need a new pillow, I need a new mattress, I need all the tools to help you get through it. It's expensive. I mean,
I know I saw on your website you have all the resources and everything that you loved, and
hmm.
how to buy all the stuff, and I love that.
Oh,
That's really awesome.
thank you.
One stop
Yeah.
shopping for all the things that you need,
Well,
right?
it's just people text me all the time like, "Hey, what should I get?" And I'm or what did you get? And I was like, always I go and search my history, hit copy paste, and I was like, okay, let's just put it on a web page, then we can just head on over. So oh no, I just totally lost my train of thought. Oh, the book drive.
Anyway, the book
Yes,
drive,
yes, yes.
right?
So it's expensive. I mean, I think they estimate that the out-of-pocket costs of a cancer diagnosis is just shy of $10,000 in addition to everything else that you're going through, right? If we had to actually calculate the the different clothes and all the things that we had to buy to make us comfortable. And I thought, I don't want to ask people to buy this book. You're already, even though it's not expensive on Amazon, it's like $16 or $15.99. But I thought, I want to get this in the hands of everybody, whether they're economically, have the resources or not. So I said, and also I had a lot of people who wanted to support me, who maybe the book wasn't necessarily something they needed in their life, but they were like, how can I support you as an author? And I said, I know. Let's create a book drive so they can buy a book for more like cost of $10, and then I will then donate it to a cancer patient. And so I've sent, and it was just started out as like, oh, that'll be fun for my friends and family. Well, then it kept going and going, and people would tell other people, and it's only a month in, and I haven't done any advertising or anything like that, but we've gotten enough donations for over 1,000 books, and I've partnered now with cancer centers across the country, from as far east as Virginia up through over Kansas and Los Angeles, and so I'm giving them the cancer centers get boxes of the book, and then they are able to distribute to the patients as they see fit. My dream was that when you're first diagnosed, you get this binder, which is so helpful and also really
Mhm.
scary because it is a binder full of all of the things that can happen, and all the side effects and everything you're going to go through. And I thought there's nothing in there that is like happy or hopeful. And so I thought, why not add this to the new patient, diagnosis binder? And so that's where I'm hopeful, and I believe that's where most of them will give them. But also people who are currently in treatment come to an appointment. It'll be at their discretion, but the hope is that it gets into as many of the patients. It's like 2 million new cancer diagnoses per year. So we have a lot more
Ugh.
fundraising to do. And that's why I actually migrated now to you know, individuals were always incredibly grateful for because even $10, it just remember you are impacting a life. It's not, oh, this $10 goes to a fund and like maybe, it gets somewhere. That absolutely will impact a life, 100%. And so we are
Mm,
now reaching out to corporations within the cities or, the markets that the cancer centers are. So that's every city in the country. And we have an opportunity for them to fund a cancer center. And it's not that expensive. The average cancer center is 500-ish new diagnosis per year. So for $5,000, I mean, that's what you spend on like a charity golf tournament. so,
right.
and this genuinely impacts 500 lives. But there's other centers. I just sent a donation yesterday to a center who sees 7,500 new diagnoses per year. So there's bigger opportunities too. And then there's marketing opportunities so that the patient knows who's supporting them. This book is generously donated to you by XYZ Corporation and with love. And so there's a neat give back. And I decided I would start a nonprofit. So we, as you said I'm going to pay you to be my hype person with
Yeah.
my bio because that was awesome. I'm like, oh, that was wow. Kind of felt like Michael Jordan.
Hey, I didn't write it. I just said it. So that's all on
It
you.
felt like Michael Jordan. But anyway, I formed a 501(c)(3 so that every donation is 100% tax deductible for people and corporations.
Wow, that is beautiful. I love that you're doing
Thank you.
that because, I haven't finished the book, but I have read part of it and I wish this was something that was around when I was first diagnosed and going through treatment. So I think you're going to impact a lot of lives with
Thank
this,
you.
and that is awesome. And in that vein, so where can people find you? Where can people find your book? Where can they make a donation? If they just want to connect with you and find out more information, what's the best way to do
Well,
that?
the mothership is the website, so hopeandjoy.net. So with the AND, so HOPEANDJOY.net, and on there's a button that says book drive. There's a button that right, of course, front and center is the book, and you click on it, and it will take you to the Amazon link for Amazon. But even if you Google Finding Hope and Joy in Cancer, Barnes and Noble has it. A lot of different outlets sell the book, but I was, they're all great. They all are wonderful. But yeah, it's easy. Just go on the website, and all the links are right there on the homepage.
Okay, awesome. And we'll put that in the show
Thank
notes
you.
so people can just click through from there.
Great.
Okay, Amanda. So I always ask my guests this at the end of every show. And I mean, we've talked about it a little bit, but if you came across somebody who's just diagnosed with cancer or is in the midst of overwhelm of this diagnosis, what is one piece of advice that you would give to somebody to just kind of help them through the early stages of this diagnosis?
Find a trusted therapist as soon as possible. That I didn't realize how impactful that was going to be at the time. I was actually working with a business coach that was helping me just make business decisions. Unbeknownst to me, she was also very spiritual and emotional and helped me in life in general as well. But unbeknownst to me, she had walked that path with many other executive women who had battled cancer. So she gave me incredible tools from the very beginning of how I could navigate this with grace and receive help that was actually helpful because people are going to want to support you, but you have to know how to communicate what you need, and that's hard to do sometimes, especially women. We're really bad at accepting help. So I mean, I could give you a 10 tips that she gave me that I would then pass on, but I believe that there are a lot of great counselors and therapists out there, and they will give you a multitude of tools that will help you navigate the diagnosis. And the most important part of it, yes, your body's going to go through a physical battle, but mentally your body's going to go through an even bigger battle. And so if you can come to the table with armor for your heart, your soul, your mind, I believe you will move through it with much more ease, no matter what difficulties your body has. Because I had them all. If there was a side effect listed on the like Google side effects, check, 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 I had them all. And yet,
Oh,
like I said, I was the
goodness.
happiest I'd ever been. So it's possible.
Hmm. Wow. You are the very picture of
Oh,
hope and joy through this. So it was a perfect title to your book. And I'm so grateful that you were able to join me today and share your story because it is so impactful. And I think it's going to help a lot of
thank you so
people.
much for having me, Melissa. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a great rest
Thanks,
of
you
your
too.
day. All right. Bye bye.